The moment the missiles hit, everything changed. Across multiple U.S. military bases, alarms shattered the silence. Screens lit up, radios crackled, commands echoed through corridors. A single message spread like wildfire. Combat readiness. Immediate deployment. Air Force squadrons scrambled to their stations. Marines dropped everything and moved with urgency. No hesitation, no questions. This wasn't a drill. Within minutes, bases that had been calm just moments before turned into controlled chaos. Boots pounded against concrete. Orders were shouted. Engines roared to life. Somewhere far away, the conflict had already begun, and now the United States was moving. Engines were already running before the sun even set. Lines of buses rolled across the base, carrying Marines straight from their barracks to the airfield. No one spoke much. The weight of the moment hung heavy in the air. Ahead of them stood the giant, a C-17 Globemaster III, its rear ramp lowered like an open mouth waiting to swallow everything. One by one, they boarded. Around them, the operation never slowed. Forklifts rushed back and forth, hauling pallets of ammunition, communication systems, medical kits, and power units. Armored vehicles roared up the ramp, MRAPs, tactical buggies, heavy trucks, each chained down with precision inside the aircraft. Everything had a place. Everything had a purpose. Inside the cargo bay, the Marines sat shoulder to shoulder, surrounded by war itself. This wasn't just a flight, and this was the beginning of something much bigger. And it wasn't over yet. The aircraft wouldn't even leave immediately. There was one more stop, another base, more troops, more equipment, before heading straight into the heart of the Middle East. Outside, more transport planes were already being loaded. This was only the first wave. While the transports filled with troops, another kind of preparation was already underway. On a separate airfield, under harsh white lights, rows of fighter jets stood silent, waiting. But not for long. Ground crews moved with relentless precision. Panels were opened, wiring inspected. Radar systems tested down to the smallest detail. Every inch of the aircraft was checked, rechecked, and signed off. There was no room for error, not now. Mechanics climbed across the fuselages, running diagnostics. Avionics specialists monitored systems inside the cockpit. Engineers examined engines, ensuring they could withstand continuous combat missions in the days ahead. Then came the weapons. Missiles were carefully mounted onto wingtip rails. Guided bombs were lifted into place under the wings using heavy hoists, each connection locked in. Each circuit tested. Red safety pins hung visibly, temporary, but not for long. Fuel trucks rolled in next, hoses connected. JP-8 fuel surged into the tanks. Gauges ticked upward. One jet after another, filled and ready. The rhythm never stopped. Fuel, weapons, systems, repeat. By the time the pilots would arrive, every aircraft on that runway would be fully armed, fully fueled, and ready to strike. Dusk fell, and with it, the final order came. Prepare for boarding. Soldiers formed into tight columns outside the hangars. No more rushing now, just discipline, silence, and focus. Boots moved in unison as they marched toward the waiting aircraft. The massive C-17 SL stood ready, engines humming low like restrained power. One by one, the soldiers walked up the ramps and disappeared inside. No turning back. Inside the cargo bay, they took their seats along the sides, surrounded by gear, vehicles, and the constant vibration of the aircraft. Loadmasters moved quickly through the aisle, checking cargo straps, confirming head counts, securing every last detail. Then, the ramp began to close. A heavy metallic seal shut them off from the outside world. Moments later, the aircraft started to move, taxiing, one after another. But the transports lined up on the runway, then surged forward. Engines roared, wheels lifted, and within seconds, they vanished into the darkening sky. No lights, no noise beyond the engines, just a silent fleet heading toward war. Hours later, the ground came back into view. A stretch of runway cut through the darkness of the desert. One by one, the C-17s descended. Heavy wheels slammed onto the tarmac. Reverse thrust roared. The aircraft slowed, but the mission didn't, not even for a second. The moment the planes stopped, the ramps dropped. Hot air rushed inside. Soldiers stood up immediately, grabbing their gear without hesitation. No confusion, no delay. They moved. Vehicles were unchained and driven straight off the aircraft. Forklifts surged forward, pulling cargo pallets out at high speed. Engines, voices, metal, everything blended into one continuous motion. This wasn't an arrival. This was a transfer of power. The same aircraft that brought them here would soon turn around, flying back across the ocean to bring even more troops, wave after wave. And for the soldiers stepping onto the tarmac, this place was no longer foreign. It was now home. No one knew for how long. They followed directions from base personnel, disappearing into the growing operation, into tents, barracks, briefing zones. Behind them, more aircraft lights appeared in the sky. More were coming. The base never slept. Under the floodlights, the airfield was alive. Machines, crews, and weapons all moving in perfect coordination. Fighter jets stood lined up across the runway, some exposed under the open sky, others hidden inside hardened shelters. Each one ready. Fuel trucks rolled from jet to jet, hoses locked in place. JP-8 fuel surged into the tanks as gauges climbed steadily. Nearby, weapons teams worked in silence. Missiles were lifted and secured onto the wings. Guided bombs locked into pylons with mechanical precision. Cables connected, systems synced. Every weapon was checked, then checked again. Nothing was left to chance. Red safety pins still hung from each payload, final barriers between preparation and destruction. Mechanics moved underneath the aircraft, inspecting landing gear, control surfaces, engine intakes. Avionics specialists ran final diagnostics inside the cockpit. The sequence never changed. Fuel, weapons, systems, repeat, over and over, until every jet on that line became a fully armed machine of war. Then, the pilots arrived, helmets in hand, faces calm, focused. They didn't rush. They didn't need to, because everything was already waiting for them. Engines would ignite soon, and when they did, the sky itself would become the battlefield. The signal came without warning. No countdown, no dramatic speech, just one command: launch. Pilots climbed into their cockpits, strapping in with practiced precision. Canopies slid shut, sealing them inside. Ground crews stepped back. One by one, engines ignited. A deep rising roar tore through the airfield as turbines spun to life. Heat waves distorted the night. Lights flickered across the runway. The red safety pins were pulled. Now, there was nothing holding the weapons back. Jets began to taxi forward in perfect sequence. Each movement calculated, each second planned. Then, afterburners. Flames erupted from the engines as the first fighter surged down the runway, accelerating into the darkness. Lift, gone. Another followed, then another. Within minutes, the sky above the base was filled with invisible power. Fighters climbing, deforming, heading toward their targets. No one cheered, no one spoke. They all knew what had just begun would not end quickly, and somewhere far beyond the horizon, the targets were waiting, far from the base, deep in the night sky. The formation moved in silence. No lights, no warnings, only radar shadows crossing invisible lines. Inside each cockpit, screens glowed faintly. Target coordinates locked, systems armed, breathing steady. Everything was seconds away. Then, a voice cut through the radio, short, cold, precise. Targets confirmed. Below them, the land stretched endlessly, dark, quiet, unaware of what was coming. Fingers hovered over controls. One command left. One moment before everything changed, and then something unexpected appeared on the radar. A new signal. Unknown, fast, closing in. The pilots froze for a split second. This wasn't part of the plan. The mission had just begun, but now no one knew how it would end. The radar signal grew stronger, fast, too fast. Inside the cockpit, warning tones began to pulse. Not friendly, not expected, hostile. Unidentified aircraft approaching. The formation tightened instantly. Pilots adjusted altitude, locking sensors onto the incoming signal. Then, more signals appeared. Not one, multiple. They weren't just being watched, they were being intercepted. Missile warning systems flickered alive. The calm, controlled operation from minutes ago had turned into something else entirely, something dangerous. A voice broke through the radio. "This is no longer a clean strike and we have contact." Far below, the original targets no longer mattered, because now, the hunters had become the hunted. Flares armed, countermeasures ready, fingers tightened on the controls. The night sky, once silent, was about to explode. The first missile came without mercy. A sharp warning tone screamed inside the cockpit. Lock confirmed. "Break! Break!" The formation shattered instantly. Jets split in different directions, afterburners igniting as pilots pulled hard on the controls. G-forces slammed into their bodies as they dove, climbed, and rolled through the darkness. Then, a flash. One missile tore through the sky, trailing fire as it chased its target. Flares burst out like sparks, scattering heat signatures across the night. The missile veered, confused for a split second, then detonated. The explosion lit up the sky. But it wasn't over. More missiles followed, more signals, more threats. The sky was no longer empty. It was alive with speed, fire, and death. "Fox 2!" An American fighter launched its own missile. The weapon shot forward, cutting through the darkness toward the incoming aircraft. Seconds felt like minutes. Then, impact. A distant fireball erupted, briefly illuminating the clouds. But even as one target fell, others were still coming. Closer, faster. This wasn't just an interception anymore. This was a full-scale aerial battle, and there was no way out. The next hit came too fast. No warning this time. Just a flash across the radar. Then a voice, strained and sharp. "I've been hit!" One of the jets broke formation, trailing smoke as it spiraled downward. Control systems failing, alarms screaming inside the cockpit. The pilot fought to stabilize. Nothing responded. Hydraulics gone, engine failing, altitude dropping fast. "Pull up! Pull up!" But it was too late. The aircraft rolled uncontrollably, flames tearing through its wing as it descended toward the darkness below. Inside, a final decision. Eject, or go down with the jet. A split second. Then, ejection. The canopy blasted away. The seat fired upward, ripping the pilot out of the dying aircraft just moments before. Impact. A massive explosion lit up the ground far below. Back in the sky. The remaining pilots saw it, heard it, felt it. Silence filled the radio for a brief moment. Then, a cold voice cut through. "Stay focused. We're still in this." No time to process, no time to look back, because the enemy was still there. And now, this fight had become personal. The silence didn't last. It never does. "Regroup, lock targets, we finish this." The remaining jets tightened formation again. Fewer now, but sharper, more dangerous. This time, no hesitation. Radar systems recalibrated. Targets locked one by one. Every pilot now fully committed. No distractions, no fear, only execution. Fox 3, long-range missiles launched. They cut through the night like invisible blades, guided, precise, unstoppable. Seconds later, explosions. 1, 2, 3. Enemy signals began to disappear from the radar, but not all. 2 contacts remained, closing fast, too close. The lead pilot made a split-second decision. "All units, push forward, we end it now." Afterburners ignited at full power. The jets surged straight into the remaining threats instead of pulling back. A dangerous move, but decisive. Missiles were no longer the only option. This was close combat now. Visual range. The pilots locked eyes. Through glass, through darkness, through speed. Then, gunfire. Tracers ripped across the sky. One enemy jet broke apart mid-air, scattering fire like falling stars. The last one tried to escape. Too late. Locked, fired, hit. A final explosion echoed through the night. Then, nothing. No signals. No movement. The sky fell silent again. Breathing steadied. Hands loosened on the controls. The battle was over. But as the pilots turned back toward base, fuel running low, aircraft damaged, one of their own gone, no one spoke. Because deep down, they all knew this wasn't the end. It was only the beginning.